Hey, welcome back to another edition of Open Shutter, Saturday edition. I have the pleasure of welcoming Elana Emer to the program. Elana, thanks so much for coming on
Hi, thank you for having me.
and spending part of your Saturday on this thing.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
We are just talking offline how it's kind of a crappy day outside. It's kind of raining and doing some other things outside, so it's kind of a good day to be inside and talk about photography and everything all about it, right?
Every day is a good day to talk about photography.
Every day is a good day to talk about photography. Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't know for the people watching and listening, like, what do you want people to know about you?
I'm I'm an arts and culture and portrait photographer based in
Yeah,
Toronto,
yeah,
and I love what I do very much, and
yeah.
that's about it.
That's good.
Yeah,
Loving what you do is important, isn't it?
it is.
Especially when it's
It's
like
my
your
main concern.
especially when it's your gig, like when it's like your full-time gig and you're making money and it's
Yeah,
important because sometimes that line gets blurred where some people take their, hobby slash passion and they want to make it like a full-time gig and sometimes people burn out, right? Because it's
yeah.
still work, right? Like it's still work.
It's really hard work, and I think people don't always realize that, especially as content creation grows.
Yeah,
There's also sort of a difference between content creation and like professional photography or videography in the sense that like I suppose if you made content online and you're not being sponsored, like it's for you. You
sure.
set the topic, you set the deadlines and stuff
Yeah,
like that. But
yeah,
working for clients is a bit of a different ball game.
yeah,
Not saying it's better or worse or harder or easier. It's just a bit of a different sphere to be in. And
yeah,
it's really heartbreaking when people take something that is their hobby and want it to be their full-time career. The it's a tough thing to do.
yeah. I mean, have you always wanted to get into this kind of line of work? No,
Um, no,
no. Okay.
I found photography through filmmaking, which it's
Right.
usually the other way around. I
Right.
think people
Yeah.
will start out as photographers and then find
Yeah.
filmmaking. But I didn't really know what to do. I remember being in high school and I had started making little videos on Mac, like teaching myself to edit on iMovie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just making fun little videos for myself
Yeah.
and my friends. And then when it came time to apply for university, I really didn't know what to do. I knew what I didn't want to do,
And what was
but I
that?
didn't know.
What did
It
you
was
not want?
business. My older sister went into business,
Right.
um, and I knew I didn't want to do anything that really involved math um, or
But
like
you are in
liberal
business,
arts.
though. But you are in business.
I'm in business. I didn't, honestly, I had a
Yeah.
very small understanding of what that was at the time.
Yeah.
But being a freelancer, running your own business, I think is very, very different
Sure.
um, than working
Of
corporate
course.
to a
Yeah.
degree.
Right.
Yeah, I just knew I didn't want to do that, and I didn't know what to do at all.
Wow.
And my
Scary, eh?
parents suggested film school, which
Wow. Your parents
really
suggested that?
surprises me. Yeah, it really
Wow.
surprised me at the time, and it still surprises me now
You got
when
some
I
cool
tell the
parents.
story. Yeah, yeah, I do. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I didn't know film school was a thing at all,
Yeah.
and so I suppose I ended up there by accident, sort of. And I remember like a lot of the other students were diehard, like movie buffs or cinephiles, and like knew exactly
Yeah.
how where they wanted to be when they left school, and I was just kind of like there for the ride, along for the ride, sort of
Yeah.
taking in everything for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, are those movies that you made way back when still public? Or were they ever
Uh,
public?
Honestly, very, very sadly, I think
Yeah.
I get so self-conscious, and I think I used to have a YouTube channel like when I was in high school,
Right.
and I didn't just privatize the channel. Like I manually deleted all the videos, I think, when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Um, like a fit of, I guess, embarrassment. And so they're lost. I thought I had them like on
Man.
my old computer, but they're gone, which is really sad. But
Yeah.
the films that I made in film school are still out in the world or on
Yeah.
somebody's hard drive somewhere.
Or somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. And what kind of movies were they?
I actually one of the things I specialized in school was experimental filmmaking.
Nice.
So, just kind of like abstract art in
Right.
video form,
Yeah.
which I really enjoyed. I did a lot of pieces on surrounding mental health themes,
Yeah.
um, and I really just got to run wild with creativity. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great when you can just kind of have like no like limits, right? Like in
Yeah,
talking about like working like making stuff for yourself versus working for clients. Like when you start working for a client, it's no longer about you, it's about them. So you have to follow what they want. And sometimes you may not agree with what they want, but they're paying you. So you kind of have to follow through on what they want, even though you may not agree sometimes. I'm not sure if you've been in that space before, but I mean, it's
I've
kind of
done
like
a
a tough
little
spot.
bit.
It's kind of like a tough spot sometimes, right? Because you don't really, because you're an artist, like this is not the way it should be done. And
I mean, it is a tough spot, and I
yeah,
think that that's why it's so heartbreaking when people, including myself, like, want to try and make a full-time career out of this because
yeah,
you have to deprioritize art and deprioritize the stuff that you're, I'll say, like, emotionally invested in,
exactly.
um,
Yeah.
and serve the client. And a lot of times, like, depending on the situation, depending on what kind of shoot it is, because the most lucrative forms of photography are like, real estate photography or things that are just like very technical, very cookie cutter and
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
very fun, I
Yeah.
think. And so
Yeah.
like you just
True.
sort of have to deprioritize how it looks, which seems so counterintuitive, and
Yeah.
just do what is needed to get the job done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, I mean, especially with like real estate photography, like, you go on like job boards and stuff, like every single video photo job is more or less a real estate company or real
Yeah.
estate agent.
Okay.
It's like, and it's like, but all the videos and all the videos are the same. It's the same thing. Like there's nothing different about it. And I just feel
Yeah.
like people get I guess, obviously the main job of like a real estate agent is to get clients and to close deals. So I guess maybe sometimes they're afraid of like doing different things because they're afraid they're not going to get like the same kind of like exposure on social media, which to me I
Yeah.
think is like you should do different things because that's how you're going to stand out. That's how
Yeah.
people are going to remember your name because you did something totally different instead of like the usual drone pan transition shots,
Yeah.
which I get. I mean, yes, you got to show the place, but I mean at the same time, like try to do something different. Maybe put yourself in front of the camera and talk about the actual property or something, right? So
Yeah, I think with like that's such a prime example of something that is photography to serve like a very specific purpose.
yeah,
And so it sort of needs to be that way. And so you
yeah,
can't really put your personality into it or put
yeah,
yourself into it,
yeah,
um, which
yeah,
is unfortunate.
yeah. I mean, ego is a big thing, right? I mean, especially in like the arts where it's like, no, this is my baby, like this is what I do, and sometimes ego gets in the way. So it's important to like not let your ego stop you if you really want to kind of make it a long-term full-time
Yeah,
gig. Because
yeah.
what are you gonna do, right?
I
There,
think like that's such a huge part of it, and it's really humbling to work with clients and
yeah,
to serve clients in that way because you're like you need to prioritize what it is they need or what it is their
yeah,
business needs, and it's not always the sexiest thing.
right,
um and it's sort
yeah.
of like it hurts a little bit, but it
It
does make
does.
you a better business person, and it does help you
It's the artist in
build
you,
a
right?
sustainable, yeah, but
It's the
it
artist in you,
that's how
right?
you build a sustainable career, I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not as glamorous as people may make it seem sometimes. So,
it's really not. I think unless you're like a big time influencer who gets hired to be themselves, or like
yeah,
if you're a really famous photographer who works a lot with celebrities
sure.
who's high, if you're big time like that,
Yeah,
you get hired because of your style and who you are and the
yeah,
uniqueness you put into it. But I think the hard truth is like 80% of working photographers get hired to do something a certain way, or like nobody really cares what your unique style is or your
mm,
unique take on it is. They
yeah.
just want,
Interesting,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, which to me, it's like I don't know. Like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like like I'm just a number, like it can just be easily replaced with like the next person. Like it doesn't like, Paul's here, okay, cool. But if I don't like Paul, I'll go to Steve. Like
Yeah.
it's like sometimes I just want to know. No, it's like I'm the only person that can do what you want me to do. Like it's kind of like that kind of mentality, right? Like no
Yeah.
AI or no computer, like no, it's like, no, you brought me here because, you know, I kind of like think of it like director. Like if you want like Christopher Nolan to make a movie, you know exactly what you're gonna get. Like something
Yeah.
totally crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that kind of mentality where it's like, no, I want to bring Nolan on because I want this kind of look,
You
So
want to kind of look, or you want to kind of a kind of vibe, or
yeah, Nolan or
specific
Fincher or
perspective. Yeah.
yeah, and that's
And
kind of like
same
yeah,
with
go ahead.
cinematographers as well. Like just like their own style will,
Yeah,
you're like, this person is right for the job. And
yeah,
I mean, you're right. Like a lot of times I feel like I'm just treated as a body with a camera and
yeah.
very, very expendable.
Yeah, but meanwhile, you have this like whole skill set where people, you know, may not even want because they want a certain because they want to do their thing, not like your thing, right? Which is
Yeah.
again, it kind of hurts the ego, right? So it's kind of a weird place sometimes. But I mean, to me, it's like, what are you gonna do? You can't have it all. Like there are always to me, like there is no dream job. Like there is always something that you're not gonna like about what you do.
Yeah.
Like there's gonna be something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's more along the lines of like having a job that's right at the right moment for you, and then you just move on to the next thing. Hopefully, you can grow and kind of build your portfolio and
Mm,
move up and all those things. But I mean, I always think that there's always something that you're not going to like, just, something.
yeah. No, that's
You
very,
know,
very true.
you know,
And yeah. And I think like there needs that's why you need a sort of that work life balance, especially if it is
yeah,
your hobby or it is something that you really
yeah,
love and are emotionally invested in. Like you need to find ways to do it outside of work. Otherwise you'll just
100%
sort of like lose that.
critical. Oh, that's
Yeah.
what people
Yeah.
quit because they don't do it outside of
Yeah.
work
And then
because
they
it
like
just
don't pick up a camera for 20 years.
happens all the time. It happens all the
Yeah.
time. Like I've had other people on that have kind of said the same thing where if you're not doing it for you in some aspect, then it just becomes a job, right? Which
That can be dangerous in a way because um a lot of the jobs that I find like the most fun or the most fulfilling are the jobs that don't really pay that much, or the jobs
yeah,
where like you get treated, not amazingly
mhm,
because it's low budget or there's a time crunch or
mhm,
people are inexperienced and they don't know how to like maintain professionalism while maintaining
yeah,
politeness,
yeah,
and
right,
stuff like that. And so like it's like this is the most interesting thing I've ever shot, or like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is amazing, but I
yeah,
didn't get paid, or I
right,
didn't get the credit, or I didn't get what I needed to feel like my contribution was respected or valued. And I also
yeah,
I'm walking away with nothing. So it's like, okay, now I have to go and do a bunch of real estate jobs or whatever jobs that pay a lot more but are
yeah,
not fulfilling or not like
yeah.
in that way to make up for it. So
It's
it's
weird. It's weird how
dangerous.
that works. It's weird how that
Yeah,
works.
yeah. I think it's dangerous to be like, it has to be for you because the stuff I do for me
Yeah,
doesn't allow me to be a professional.
yeah. Well, what do you do for you though? Like, what is it?
I mean,
What do you like doing? Like shooting
it's
usually.
yeah, I love what I do right now. I do a mixture of like portraiture and headshots and arts and culture, which is largely film and theater productions, as well as theater. Yeah, that's my Instagram.
Look at Elana.
Theater events.
Okay, cool.
And what I really, really love to shoot is sort of if you look at like the black and white on the end there with the two guys in the straight. Yeah,
Yeah, I like
that's
that.
like an example of a behind the scenes
Love that.
um,
I
thing
love
that
beh I
this is
love
what I love to do.
I love behind the scenes stuff.
I love it so much. Like it was originally what drew me to stills was photojournalism,
Mm,
and this like documentary reportage style of
yeah,
shooting. And it's what I love to do, but nobody wants to pay for it or like nobody thinks it's important. And so
really. Why though? Like, how
uh,
come how come you how come like, wouldn't they want some BTS of, like, what they do? I think it's cool. I think it provides, like, a really kind of, like, human element to the whole
exactly. And
process.
that's why I love it. I love photographing process. and what goes
Yeah.
into making something. And I
Yeah.
think that it's so important, but it's like, I understand, especially, in Toronto, a lot of our arts and culture scene is like nonprofit. And so
Sure.
it's really hard to allocate budget to something like that when something like production stills will
Yeah.
sell a show so much more
Mm.
to less of a niche group, I guess.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but this like that's really what I love to do. And so like I do a lot of those shoots for free, the behind the scenes.
Okay.
And I do try and do them in like a collaborative way. Um, and I mean, my hope is that I will be able to build enough of a portfolio of that stuff to really show future clients like how significant it can be, and then they will pay for it.
Yeah. I think it's super important. Like I love the behind the scenes stuff. Like just with like anything, like I love how how it all gets made. It's super cool, I think.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, I sort of I was interested in being a photojournalist, like I said, and then
Yeah.
I spoke to some photojournalists or journalists, and they were like,
Right.
photojournalism doesn't exist anymore. You need to
Yeah.
do
How
video
come?
journalism. And I was like, oh God, no.
No, it does.
Um,
Photojournalism still exists.
I think it exists, but it's a lot of it is
Yeah.
contractor, or like they were like, you can't really build a career out of it. And I think like the
Yeah.
more photographers you talk to, the more professionals you talk to, people
Mhm.
are like, you cannot, so much of the advice, like the business advice is like niche down, niche down.
Sure. Yeah.
But so much of that I think depends on where you live and like what the market is like. And so
Yeah.
sometimes you can't niche down too much because there's just not a market for
Right.
something that specific where you are.
Yeah.
And so like, the market right now is video.
Yeah.
I think they were just saying like you can't really build a career out of it because there's not enough of it to go around anymore.
Really?
And
Video?
yeah,
Really?
of stills.
Oh.
So
Video of
in
stills, you mean?
sorry, there's not enough demand for photojournalism
Ah,
in the sense of like,
That's
yeah,
crazy
that
to
is
me. That's
crazy to me.
crazy to me. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
what kind of what kind of outlets did you wanna work for? In
newspapers, newspapers.
newspapers, okay.
Yeah. And so I was really surprised when they said that. Um, and
Wow.
I was interested in photojournalism, but I suppose I was interested more in the photo aspect of it than the journalism aspect. So I continued to
Yeah.
prioritize that. And then I found this theater photographer who was doing a lot of backstage behind the scenes stuff. And I totally fell in
Mm,
love with his work. And I
mm.
was like, and I had just sort of like developed this affinity for musical theater at the same time. And so I was like, okay,
Nice,
that's what I want to do. I want to
nice.
do, theater behind the scenes. And so, and just arts in general, and just kind of take a look. And, I was never a theater kid, and I was never somebody who I felt like I could do that stuff. But photography, even though you're not on stage with them or backstage with them, like
Yeah,
photography, I think is definitely a way for me to participate in it
yeah,
more
sure.
than just being a spectator, even though like
Right.
with the camera you are observing.
Yeah.
It's more of like a contribution you're making, and so like it helps me feel really connected to these things. And I like the idea of getting to show pieces of the process that people wouldn't normally get to see if they're not there with you.
Yeah, like, you're still involved with, like, the theater
Yeah.
group, just a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool, very cool. Um, so what do you think, like, makes your work, like, different from, like, all the other, like for example, which is, like, theater shoots, like, what do you think makes your work different, you think?
I think it's just, I mean, so coming from film school, I never really thought about it that much. I guess
Yeah,
I didn't have much of a style before
yeah,
then because I didn't really shoot. And so I guess a lot of my personal style was developed there. And so I've had other people tell me that my image just looks cinematic or like film, which
yeah,
I think is very cool. I mean, if you look at on the left there, the gentleman in front of the blue wall, he like that is a still from a movie.
okay.
And so it does look like a movie because it's from a movie. But then I think that there's I think that there's some consistency in the way this looks and the way that I photograph theater or I photograph real life.
Yeah.
And so I guess it does have that sort of like cinematic flair to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's a really, really interesting question, what makes your work unique?
Yeah.
Because a few years ago, sorry, a few years ago, I was tasked with photographing this theater production. It was an opera, but it was extremely narrative.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was like one of my favorite shoots to date. And I shot it. The photos
Yeah.
are on here somewhere, actually.
Okay.
I shot it, and then they brought in it's this one, the blue one, the vertical one. Yeah, it was this like sci-fi
Oh
opera. It
yeah.
was awesome.
Jeez. Torn.
And yes, A Torrent of Light. It's amazing. Tapestry Opera.
All
It's
right.
great, great company.
Shout out.
Uh, yeah, so
Whoa.
I photographed it because they needed images to go to press like really, really quickly. But
Yeah.
then another photographer, Dahlia Katz, shout out Dahlia Katz,
Oh,
who is
Dahlia Cat.
like one of the most amazing photographers and the theater photographer in Toronto. And so that's her. And I'm very lucky to call her my colleague and call her my friend.
Nice.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
But so she came in a few days later, or a week later, or something to do another set of production stills for the show.
Yeah.
And we photographed the exact same show. We had the exact same restrictions. We have very similar equipment, and the
Hmm.
photos look totally different just because
What?
of who we are as people. Um, like a lot of the same moments were captured, but feel and look totally different, which I think is such a great study in like
Yeah.
perspective
Right.
from different shooters.
Right. How was it different?
My images seem to be like moodier and darker, and I
Yeah.
think they do feel more like a movie. And her images are like bright and more detailed and just they feel more theatrical.
Mm.
Which she comes from, like I come from a film background, but she, before she was a photographer, she worked in theater and she still works in theater. Like she
Yeah.
directs.
Nice.
And so just our different backgrounds sort of like, I guess, influence our eye.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Past
Yeah.
past experiences, I guess, and past. Yeah. Yeah. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
They like it influences the lenses we choose, it influences the way
Mm.
that we edit the image later and the way that we
Mm.
compose. And it's sort of like, split second, you don't think about it, but very,
Yeah.
very interesting to see.
Interesting. Hmm. Interesting. Eh? Very cool.
Okay.
Um. So this was a good opera. Eh? Torrent of Light. Is it
It
still
was a
going
great
on,
opera.
or is it
No,
a one-time thing?
this was years ago. I think this
Mm.
was 2022.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, it was years ago.
Okay. Um. Well, it's great. I mean, like, what do you like? I mean, are there things that you want to get better at? Like, do you have like certain goals this year that you want to get better at, or?
Yeah, it's been my goal for quite a while to get better at portrait photography
Oh, really? Eh?
and working with people one on one because I'm really comfortable
Yeah.
with the behind the scenes stuff because I'm
Yeah.
a fly on the wall and I used to have
Right.
very bad social anxiety, and so like I
Now you're
developed,
on a podcast.
well, I'm very nervous right now. But
Yeah.
having anxiety and sort of like
Right.
being comfortable being invisible for so long, like you develop
Yeah.
very good observational skills, and I
Yeah.
think that has helped me in my work so much. Because I pick up on a lot of small details that make great moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And working, I think one on one with people is totally different in the sense that like you have to talk, you have to be there and like
You gotta
interact with
direct. You gotta
them.
direct
You,
people. You gotta lead.
right, yeah,
You're
and
like
so
the
like
lead. Yeah.
yeah, and you have to make them feel safe and trust you and have confidence in you. And
Right.
so I think like something that I really want to get better at is my confidence
Yeah.
on set, especially like I would really love to do more commercial work. And when you do that, like it's a much bigger set. There's a lot more people there and
Yeah.
they're all sort of like looking to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely collaborative and I think a mistake that I've made in the past is being like, I need to have all the answers. I need to have everything figured
Sure.
out
A
before I
lot of
get there.
pressure. A lot of pressure.
And yeah, and like that's
Yeah.
not really true. Like
Yeah.
it's very collaborative and people want to know that like you're open to discussion and making decisions together on set and that you're not like, okay, let's just do this, 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 and this, and
Yeah.
like no questions.
Yeah.
So it is like a lot less pressure than I maybe originally thought, but like almost all of the portrait work I have on my profile right now and on my website, like it's
Right.
just been me and the subject or me and the sitter
Yeah.
alone. And
Right.
so actually one of the things I used to do was there's this card game that's called like Let's Get Closer and it
Oh yeah.
has questions on it that like
Okay.
vary in levels of intimacy.
Hmm.
And I would just like rent a studio,
Right.
call up friends I knew or, models or dancers I knew and been like, "Oh, do you wanna just, do you want some headshots?" And we
Yeah.
would sit there for hours and talk and get to know each other via
Yeah.
these cards, and
Mm.
we would tell, like, really intimate stories or, ask each other questions back and forth, and then
Wow.
shoot a little bit, and then pull out the cards, and then shoot a little bit, and so that's how I got comfortable with interacting with people while holding
Wild.
a camera.
Really? Wow. That's
And it's
cool.
yeah, and like a lot of these people are still like we're still friends, we're buddies, like we'll go for
Yeah.
coffee, we'll hang out,
Yeah.
and it's great.
Let's Get
Yeah.
Closer is the card game?
It's a card game. It's a little
Never
bit
heard of
old. I'm
it.
not sure if they still make it, but they make versions of it. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's a great way to break the ice. I mean, if it worked, it worked, right? Like,
It definitely worked. I'm one of
yeah.
my favorite shoots was like it was like ended up being 4 hours long.
Yeah.
Um with a girl that like I never would have spoken to otherwise. And we ended up getting like very close that day.
Yeah.
Um and we spent a lot of time together because we ended up, going out to eat after.
Nice.
Um, and it was great, and it was a pleasure to know her, and I to be connected to her in that way. Like I love portraits that feel really honest and really intimate,
Yeah.
and where
Yeah.
the person that you're photographing feels seen. Like they're not
Right.
just there to serve your vision.
Right.
And I can point out the ones that were like that versus the ones that were more of like
Yeah, you know?
a dance between us. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So how do you know if like if the person's being seen?
Um, that's a terrific question. That's a terrific
Like is
question,
it is it just like
and
a feeling between you two? Like is it a vibe?
I think so. I think, like, if it feels more like a collaboration, like, if it feels more like the less contrived it is, I
Yeah.
feel I learned a long time ago that I do better with less prep, despite being
Right.
somebody who is anxious, like, I'm much better at sort of, like, winging it on set.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, depending on the kind of
Yeah.
shoot it is,
Sure.
than I am, like, over preparing storyboards or, different ideas of this and that, and sort of just, like, trusting my intuition on the day, and I feel like shooting is, like, the only time I'm ever actually trusting my intuition, and I think on the day, you know, you just not to phrase it like this, but, like, you just kinda go on vibes,
You
and
go
you
on
just sort of,
vibes.
like you go on
Yeah.
vibes, and
Yeah.
both of you sort of, like it is, like, an exchange of energy or like a dance between your energies in the moment,
Yeah.
and where you both feel like you're sort of like working towards something that you both are proud of. I think that's like a good
Yeah. I think it's totally about
way to
totally about
describe it. Yeah.
it's totally about and like about energy. I think it's totally about energy because I think if the model isn't like feeling the vibe, it'll probably show in that person's pose or eyes or just,
Yeah. If
I
you
think
go up a little bit on my
yeah.
Instagram, there's like this girl who's yeah on the left there in front of the yellow building. That's my friend Zareen. And that was
Okay.
like the first day that we met.
Oh yeah.
And she was
Yeah.
bummed out. She was, like, not comfortable in her makeup or her clothes, I think, and, like,
Yeah.
we were sort of clashing, and the photos, like, they're just not very real feeling, and they don't feel like either of us, like, this isn't my style of shooting, this isn't her style of
Mhm.
modeling,
Mhm.
um, and they're just like, we shot all day. I came out with two that I kind of liked, and I know she feels the same.
Yeah.
And then, and I felt like she hated me, and she felt like I hated
No.
her.
Oh
And then we ended
no.
up shooting again together like a year later, and
Right.
we slowly became friends. And now we're really close friends. We shoot together, but like that's not the primary reason we spend time together anymore.
Yeah.
And we know each other on a very different level. And so so this was like I don't know, it was probably 2021.
Mhm.
And then if you go to like the top of my profile, there's images of her from last October, I think, where I think the vibe is just, yeah, it's pinned right there. Like the vibe is just so different. Um, that's the same person. And I feel
Yeah.
like the energy of the images and like the connection she has to the camera and to me on the other side of it
Yeah.
can be felt in the
Yeah.
images.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what makes a great portrait.
Yeah,
Is just the energy, right?
definitely.
So did she tell like did you guys have a conversation about that first shoot, or was it just kind of like understood about why you're doing it again kind of thing?
So the second shoot we did together I was on this like portrait sort of parade, I
Yeah,
guess,
sure.
where I was like connecting with different models or dancers or just like I like taking portraits of people who are themselves creatives,
Yeah.
because they're like a little more comfortable on camera or they're a little more open to like
Yeah.
just trying stuff or just being fun. And so I was connecting with people I knew professionally, I guess.
Nice.
And I called her up and I was like, "Hey, like I have a studio. I don't know if you're interested in maybe do," and she was like, "Absolutely, yes." And the point of it, I thought in that moment was like, I didn't have a lot of like people skills or social skills. And so,
Mm,
more than taking good photos during that time, like my goal was to figure out how to connect with somebody
nice.
separate from the camera. I
Yeah.
just feel a lot more confident and comfortable when I'm holding a camera in any situation, even if I don't have to talk to people. So it
Yeah.
helped me.
Yeah.
But my goal was really to get to know the person that I was shooting. And so
Yeah.
we just talked about everything. We talked about our first impressions of each other. We talked about
Wow,
just a
great.
lot of really personal stuff.
Great.
Um,
Love that.
and I'm an oversharer at the best of times.
Yeah.
So I think like I was kind of like, oh, what's the way to like break the ice with someone? What's disarming? Oh, just like
Right.
sharing a lot of really personal stuff for no reason. Let's do
Yeah.
that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, like whatever works, right? I just think
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people like that feel the same way where, especially when it's like when it's a side hustle, like a full-time business, like you need to be able to approach people
Yeah,
and trying to like land clients and sell your business and sell your vision. Like these are all like different skill sets versus just picking up the camera and shooting, which I think is sometimes hard for people because some people may not like that kind of like not salesy approach, but just like outgoing, you know,
yeah,
hey, how are you? My name is, this is what I do. I love your stuff. Do you want to work together? Blah, blah, blah. And it's not easy for like some people to like do that, right? Because I guess there's also like the fear of like rejection too, where you might get no a lot,
absolutely,
It's like, and like,
absolutely.
is it me? Like, am I doing something wrong? Like, like what's going on here?
Yeah, no,
you know,
absolutely. And I
yeah,
think I realized like a few years ago that if I didn't become that person, I would never have a career.
yeah,
And so I put a lot of work into like learning how to network and like learning how to do cold outreach. I mean, I wish I
yeah.
had ChatGPT back then to like help
Right,
me
right.
craft these cold emails,
No, it's
but
good. It's good that you did it without that because you know
yeah.
what you're doing.
I
You
mean,
don't need you
I
don't
feel
need
like I
it.
lost it. Like I
Yeah,
developed a roster of
right.
clients that were keeping me going for a little bit, and now
Yeah,
um trying to expand and do sort of other stuff. Like I'm looking to new clients and I'm looking
yeah,
to having to go through that like cold outreach process again. And I'm like, oh God, how do I do this? I can't believe I used to be so comfortable meeting somebody for coffee or sending an email, and now I'm terrified again. And
right.
I'm rusty. Like I need to develop it again.
Yeah, I guess it's just practice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's
Yes.
like it's just people. It's just people. It's just,
Yeah.
Everybody's the same in the end. Everybody just wants to be respected and they want to be seen and they want to be valued. And to me, it's like we're all in the same boat. Like
Yeah.
we're all in the same boat. We're just trying to do our thing, and we're just trying to make stuff that we like, other people like, and we want to grow and we want to, especially post pandemic, like you just want to like meet people, like network, and just like get exposed to different ideas. I just feel like sometimes we get stuck in our own head. At least for me, like I get stuck in my own head a lot, and I need to like just talk to the people to like figure out like how they approach stuff, because it could be like the simplest thing, but it's like, oh, I never thought about that. Like I never thought about
Yeah.
like the card game. I never thought about that. Like, oh, okay, cool.
Definitely. I think like so many people are just the older you get and the longer you spend in the industry, you just realize like in all walks of life, but especially in this, like nobody knows what they're doing. And
Nobody
there's
knows.
absolutely no formula to this. Like
Yeah,
I really don't want to be someone working in an office, but I'm to an extent like I'm jealous of them because I feel like
yeah,
you know what to do. There's like,
yeah.
laid out steps, and then once you're hired, like you're hired.
Right, right.
As a freelancer, you can work so hard to land a client, and
Yeah,
then after a few days, the gig is over, and you have to start the process all over again instead of like working really hard
right.
towards getting hired for something and then being hired for, years on end,
You're always
hypothetically.
on the you're
So,
always you're always on the grind.
yeah,
It never
yeah,
stops. Like it just
it
keeps
never
going.
stops.
Like it just keeps
No,
going.
yeah,
Yeah, which,
but
interesting, interesting. So, well, I mean, for people that want to get into like the freelance world, like, do you have any tips for people on how to like start?
no.
No
um,
tips. There's no formula. Just good luck.
there's no formula. I
Yeah.
think like there's something to be said about being really annoying, which is advice that people
Persistent, not annoying.
it's persistence, and
Yeah,
it's like, but I struggled so much with that
yeah.
because I was just like, oh my God, I'm being so annoying. And
No.
there's so many things I still don't know how to do, but I had a meeting with somebody the other day who runs their own agency, and she was like, please just, email me once a quarter, or, whenever you sort of update your portfolio, or if you've done a project recently that you felt was really cool and that is relevant to me, like just shoot me an email, just remind me you exist,
Yeah,
because people who are really busy, or who have like a big roster, it's so easy to forget
100%.
people. And she was like, and a lot of people will get hired just because they're top of mind when an opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for being persistent. And I think like, just I don't know if I have tips for how to be successful at,
Well, just start. Just start.
starting
Not even
anything,
just start.
but just start. I have this like tattoo that says, start where you are.
Nice.
And
Nice.
it's
I like
like,
that.
it's really good life advice that I try and keep in mind all the time, especially when I'm nervous to start
Yeah.
things. And but just general advice, like know your craft, know yourself, and I think like a big thing is to protect yourself, because no one else will.
Mm.
And
How do you mean by that? Protect yourself.
protect, like, if it's, I'm sure it is your passion if you're doing. I think there's very few people who sort of go into this because they're like, "Oh yeah, I wanna make money." Like, that's not why we're here. Everybody's here because
Really?
it's their passion and they can't really do anything else, and so, like, protect the passion if you can.
Mm.
Continue to do stuff that lights you up, as well as stuff that, fills your bank account. And
Yeah.
I think protect your body and your mental health in the sense of like, develop as much of like a work life balance, or a system for that, in a sense, from the beginning, because it's really hard to implement that stuff later.
Yeah.
um
100%.
and I'm working through injuries right now. Like the last 2 years of my career and my life have been impacted by injury recovery in my dominant arm, which affects a lot of my work, and it affects like
Oh,
how I feel about a lot of my work.
oh,
And so, I feel like some things can be avoided, some things can't, but this takes a toll on your body. I know a lot of shooters like videographers or wedding photographers, because wedding photography is very intense. It's very physically demanding. A
Oh,
lot of this stuff is very physically demanding, especially if you work on film sets.
mhm.
Um, it's long hours, it's little sleep, you know, people don't take care of themselves, you don't have time necessarily, and um, people don't realize until it's too late, I'll say, that like how physically demanding it is, how much of a toll it takes on your body. And so just like, you know, prioritize that, like prioritize yourself.
Right. I guess people don't really think about that side where it could be like physically demanding. People don't really think about that side, right?
No. And I think like, you know, a lot of the prosumer gear or gear that's um meant to be like really meant to make this stuff really accessible to people
Yeah.
is very small and very light. And, you know, so you enter in and you think, oh, this is totally doable. But, you know, even something that weighs 5 pounds, if you're holding it in the air for 10 hours, it starts to weigh a lot more and it
Mhm.
starts to be like a lot harder to hold up. And
Mhm.
so it's, you know, let yourself rest, like let yourself take breaks. Like
Yeah.
this is advice I hear so much. It's like, we're not saving lives. Like it's really not that
We're
serious. It's
not.
not that deep.
Trying to save trying to save your own life, but yeah, we're
Yeah, yeah,
not.
yeah. So
Um, yeah, no, it's good advice.
protect your passion and
Yeah.
protect yourself and protect your passion by not sacrificing things like your health.
Mm. Yeah, especially I mean, especially in the, like, in the freelance world where you're always on the grind, where you're always trying to get clients because you wanna have that, like, stability.
Yeah,
If there is such a thing in,
stability.
like, the
Yeah,
freelance world, like, the stability, I feel like you always feel like you're missing out if you don't try to approach another client or try to, like, send, like, another whatever, send another portfolio, like, you always have that in like, you always feel like you should be doing more
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because nothing is guaranteed to you, like, it's all up to
yeah,
you. I feel
yeah.
that could be a real pain point for a lot of people in the freelance world where it's like, "Nope, gotta keep going. Gotta
It
pay the rent
definitely
this
is.
month. Gotta,
It
need
definitely
to
is.
make sure." Yeah, it's good advice, like, it sounds easy, but, in, like, the real world, it's like,
Hear
"Yeah, but
something.
I gotta pay the rent this month. I gotta land clients."
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, like, how many hours do you think you work per week, you think? Is it over 40?
When I'm full, like when my
Yeah,
schedule is full, it's 1,000% over 40. And the thing
yeah.
is like you can sort of be flexible or like looser with it depending on like 20%, only 20% of your time as a professional photographer is going to be spent photographing
Yeah.
or holding a camera. And, you
Mhm.
know, a good chunk of your time is going to be spent editing, but like also a really big chunk of your time is going to be spent doing admin work. And
Yeah.
a lot of that might be stuff like outreach to new clients. That might be stuff like invoicing and balancing your books or,
Mhm.
you know, stuff like that. And so when you rack up all of the hours at the computer, it's definitely over
Yeah.
40 hours.
Yeah.
Like it is a full time. There's, you know, memes that say like, oh yeah, I quit my 9 to 5 for my 24/7.
Yeah, well, that's what it is,
Um,
though.
it
It's
is.
like, "Oh, I thought I was gonna go to Bali and just be on the beach all day." When is that day coming? Yeah. No, it's just like the reality of just kinda, like, being your own boss, like, everything's up to you, which is like, "Okay, everything's up to me, so."
Yeah. If you're
Yeah.
not like a self-starter or if you're
Yeah.
somebody who can't really hold themselves accountable, which like it's
Mm.
not really my strong suit,
Yeah.
or it wasn't before I started, like you you will fall fast because there's really nobody, like there's no employer that's sort of
Yeah,
like
it's just you.
scaring you into it. You have to
That's
you
what
have
I
to do
mean.
it. Yeah. And
Yeah,
if you
like, you
don't take that action, like you can't build a client roster or anything like that.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Do you have any
Yeah.
dream clients? Like, if you could have any client in the world, like, do you have any dream ones?
Um
Could be anything.
my
Portrait.
well my original sort of like the thing that originally drew me to this work was this photographer who um he works a lot on Broadway And then
Mm.
I also found another photographer who works in the West End. And that's where I think theater and theatricality and like arts is really embedded in the culture. And so
Mhm.
like it's more commercial, it's more for profit. And so like they really value having a lot of archival stuff or like a lot of feature type
Yeah,
imagery.
yeah,
And it's just a different vibe, I think. And I would really, really love to work on Broadway or to work in the West End and
that'd be
get
cool, eh?
yeah, get behind these like larger productions where there's like a lot more people involved. Something I also do a lot is like I work on film sets
Yeah,
doing set stills or unit stills, which is like you are largely taking images that look like screenshots from the film, like
yeah,
production stills, but um you also get to do a lot of behind the scenes. And so, you
cool.
know, I love doing work like that. And that was my before I found theater photography, like that was what I was working towards with still photography,
Yeah,
was to be
cool,
like on larger productions and sort of just get into that
cool.
realm.
How
Yeah.
does one get onto a film set like that?
It's really about who you know. I
Yeah,
think like with um Canada and Toronto, I guess really has a very large independent, like indie film production
sure.
community. And so like, you know, to be on larger productions like that, appear on Netflix or in theaters or anything like that, you need to be unionized. You need to be in
Yeah.
the film union IATSE.
Mhm.
But to work on independent stuff or like documentaries or music videos, like
Mm.
you just need to know people. And
Gotta know
so,
people.
I mean, the best advice that I can give to anybody who's trying to start anything is just like take networking seriously, take and play the long game. Like,
Mm.
the best relationships that I've made are things where like I didn't put pressure on it. Don't ask for favors right away. Like, don't make your relationship transactional, make it a relationship. Make
Yeah,
it,
huge.
a real friendship or like a real connection with somebody. Prioritize like that human element over business. And just get
Mhm.
to know people.
Yeah, exactly, like, I'm sure it's pretty rare that someone's gonna be able to do you a favor on day 1 of knowing someone. Like, "What? Who
Yeah.
are you?
And it's
Who are
like, you know, if they're sort of like putting themselves on the line, pushing you
Yeah,
into a production or
yeah,
towards somebody else, it's like
right.
they need to know that
Like
they can vouch for you.
yeah, because it's their name
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always gotta remember it's
Yeah.
their name too, interesting. You be have so
Also,
have you have yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask,
Um,
have you been on any cool film sets?
I've been on I've been on the one that we were just looking at on my Instagram, that was like one of
Yeah,
my favorite shoots. And
yeah,
it was just a great crew. Like the thing I was just gonna say is like, people like to work with people they like. And
mm,
so you definitely need to know your craft and be good at it. But at the end of the day, like if you're an asshole or if you're
yeah,
no fun
yeah.
and people don't want to hang out with you for 15 hours straight, like they're not gonna hire you.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so, like, that was just a really excellent crew. It was, like, a lot of people I knew from school and friends of mine and just people who are really nice, good people. So, they're good to work with. I also, like I was working recently with the National Film Board of Canada on a
Nice,
documentary over the span of,
nice,
like, 3 years, and I started out
nice.
not in the photography role, and then I just sort of, like I was like, "Oh, what if I brought my camera and, like, you had some stills?" And they were like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, yeah."
just
And so, like,
volunteer, yeah,
that's how you like, I was being paid in another role, and
yeah.
then you just sort of tack it on. You just sort of, like you make room for yourself in the ways that you want, and that's sort of, like, how you transition to that role in real life, but also in people's minds, which is what sort of, like, leads to more opportunities. And so, doing production stills on a documentary is really, really interesting because it's not fake. It's not
Mm,
set up. There's not always lighting. There's not multiple takes if you mess up, or if you miss a moment. And so that was really fun, but it was also just like an incredible story and a project I felt really connected to because I had been working on it for so long, also with a really amazing crew. And so, yeah, that was one of my favorite shoots.
Very
I'm
cool.
not sure. It's still in production, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to reveal too much about it.
Okay, I was gonna ask you what was the doc about, but if you can't say, you can't say.
I can't really.
Yeah, very cool. I
um,
love docs. I love docs. I watch them all the time. There's some good stuff out there. Yeah, I've heard the same thing where you could be the best person at something, but if you're not liked, then like they're not gonna hire you. I've heard the exact same thing from like other people that are in like the filmmaking world where like just be nice to people because they
be
will
nice to
remember you.
people. Yeah, be nice to people.
Yeah.
Like, your reputation will walk into the room before you do,
Right.
type thing. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
leave a good taste in people's mouths, like leave a good impression. And um, I think like that can be a little bit dangerous for women because I feel like I overcorrect or I'll just you can very easily turn into a people pleaser, especially because the niceness meter is sort
Mhm.
of like the yardstick is different for women.
Mhm.
So it's easy to sort of become a doormat
Mhm.
and um, not stand up for yourself. But I think it's really important to be just like pleasurable to spend time with and work with. And
Yeah. 100%. I mean,
yeah,
I think everyone needs to stand for something.
yeah,
Like whatever you stand for, you just got to stand for it. And like that's kind of like your north star. Like however you move through your career, like as long as like, to me, it's like as long as you have like a north star where you want to go,
yeah,
I think that will help kind of like filter out the noise a lot of times because
yeah,
you can kind of align what you're doing with like the north star. Well, it's going to help me get there or not, and then it's kind of a way to like look at it differently versus I mean it could be a little bit different like the freelance world where like the grind is like always on like the gigs, but as long as there's like a north star, right? Like in terms of like what's the plan for the next 5 years, like I don't know, right?
I definitely think that like I definitely agree with that statement because there's really no right or wrong way to do this, and there's
Yeah.
really no like final answer.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
sort of like it's got to be about what you value and what you are prioritizing, both like
Yeah.
as a person and in your career and in your career trajectory. It's all
Yeah.
about what you think is important and what you want to work towards, like
Yeah.
overarching. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when your portfolio kind of like shows that and it kind of shows this like escalation of like from point A to point B to point C to point D. People kind of see this arc of like, oh, okay, I see where this
Mhm.
person wants to go. And
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's not always easy to know what like your north star is because it may change, right? People
Yeah.
change. Like people change all the time, and like your goals may change, but which I think is fine. I think sometimes you
It's
may
totally fine.
you may want to you may want to course correct and say, well, I don't want to do this now. I want to do that. So I mean,
Absolutely.
sure.
No, I think that's very true, and I think, like, thinking that that's not okay can really hold people back. So much of the, like, advice from coaches and stuff is to niche down and just be that
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
But if that no longer, like, aligns with your passions or the things that you want to achieve,
yeah,
um, it can it can really hold you back because you're in the wrong spot and
yeah. Then you get
to
stuck
change.
doing
Yeah.
a certain type of thing, and then that's not what you. I think that's why people quit because they get stuck a lot of times,
Yeah.
and they
If you don't
don't
care
know.
about what you're doing, it shows, I think, like,
Oh, 100%. If
in
you
the
don't
way.
care,
Yeah.
it's oh yeah, it's like if I don't care about what I'm doing, like I don't like it just like it becomes a job. It becomes like, okay, well, why am I even here now? Because now I don't
Yeah.
care. So
Yeah.
again, it's like an artist thing, right? Like, it's different from like a 9 to 5 thing because 9 to 5, like, you're there every day, you do your thing, and some days you work hard, some days you don't, but you're gonna be there the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus like, being in this kind of like line of work where it's like, well, I'm here, I could be somewhere else doing something else. So if I'm here, then I should really care about what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think it keeps you
You know?
present, like, it keeps you giving 100% to each job because
Yeah.
it's short term and you just, like, wanna take in as much of it, while you still can. But, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like how, I don't know. Like what do you think is like the biggest misconception about being a artist or photographer or video filmmaker? Like is there like a misconception you think people have?
That anyone can do it. Um,
Yeah, I like that.
I
Anyone can do it. I
I'm
like
sure
that
that's like a
one.
douchey thing to say, but I
No,
like
but
this, at the end of the day, like, yeah, anybody can do it the same way anybody can go to school and develop the skills to do something
mhm,
else. Like it is a specialized skill set, and I think so much of it is also like the intuition that you develop and like the sort of like mental game that you develop that allows you to make decisions quickly or,
yeah,
adapt in the moment.
mm,
And not anybody can do that. Like you need to build it up just like any other job, just like any other
yeah,
person.
yeah.
Um,
It
you
is a
know,
craft.
it is a craft, absolutely.
Yeah,
And some
it
some
is.
people, are more suited to certain things than others, but that's true for everything, I think.
Mm,
And I don't think just anybody can do it. And so it really, what you're saying at the beginning about like, oh, they have Paul, but like, what's the
yeah,
difference
get
between
Steve.
Paul
Yeah, it
and
doesn't
Steve?
yeah,
Like,
it doesn't matter. Yeah,
we're
exactly.
not
Like,
all the
exactly,
same.
exactly.
It's not just about
Yeah,
the quality of the image you're making, it's about like the client experience that you're providing, like the vibe that you bring to set,
yeah,
the way that you can like how fast you can do something is like a big deal, but that's again, that's just like people are just a lot of times like clients will just want the cheapest or the fastest,
yeah, of
or the
course.
whatever, and they don't care that much about the person or like the quality of work. And I think that's a huge mistake because
Yeah,
we're not, interchangeable, we're not expendable. And every person is sort of like bringing their own thing
preach.
to it. And it's
Yeah,
expertise. Like it's a big deal.
preach. Yeah, no, exactly. I think the phone has made people think they can do a lot of certain things, but until they actually get on set and they don't know how to problem solve things, then
Yeah.
that's when things get real.
Problem solving is what really,
Yeah,
I think, shows your expertise and your experience because
yeah,
like that's adapting in the moment and
yeah,
turning nothing into something is what really sets you apart from non-professionals, I
yeah,
guess. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think problem solving is a large part of the job. Like just being able to course correct live if something's not going right. Maybe like the lighting's not working, or maybe you need to
Yeah.
position other people in different ways, or in the editing part, like. Yeah, no, I like how you said, like, you think anybody can do it. It's like, "Oh, that's like." It's like, "Oh, I have a phone, like, can't I just," especially when clients say, "Oh, I have a phone, can't I just do it?" I'm like, "You could, but you're not gonna get this." You
Also,
know?
like, I mean, nowadays, especially with like social media being what it is, like a lot of businesses want that phone vibe or want that like,
Sure. They want the
you
reels.
know,
They want the
they
reels
want
and
the
the
reels, and,
TikToks.
like, I'm aware that,
Yeah.
like, I can't do those things. Like, I can't
Sure.
use a phone
Mm,
to create the content that people who specialize in that can. Like, some people are naturally good at it, like the younger people who are younger than me,
sure.
or, like, they develop those skills, and that is also a skill set. Like, that's a specialized skill set to
Yeah,
to the extent that mine is as well, and
yeah,
I'm not gonna kid myself by being like, "Yeah, pay me a full rate for doing something I have no idea how to do, I'll just figure it out because it's
yeah,
easy," right? Like, anybody can do it. No, that's
anybody
not
can do
true,
it.
I don't
Yeah,
agree with that at all.
yeah. Huge, huge. Yeah, I think people have this misconception about making videos or making photos or being on set or working with clients. I mean, oh, it's easy. Can't I just? Well, no, this is how it works. And it's kind of like, learning how to drive. You don't know how to drive until you're actually driving the car. Like you need to drive the car to really understand like what's involved in this whole thing. Cause
Yeah.
things happen, right? Where no YouTube tutorial, no podcast can teach you. Like something will happen. It's like you got to roll with it because you're the person being paid for it, and that's I think where sometimes pressure comes in, and you don't want to look like a fool in front of people. I mean, it does happen, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
what are you
I,
gonna do?
driving is an interesting analogy because I
Yeah,
remember, like, I had my license before one of my friends,
yeah,
and she would sit in my passenger seat a lot, and we would, when we were hanging out, and she would just sort of like ask me things about driving, and I was like, well, you need to be looking ahead, looking in your side
yeah.
mirrors, looking in your rear view mirror, make sure like your speed is on point, look around for pedestrians, look at this, look at that. And she's like, that's so many things to be
Mhm,
aware of at the same
mhm.
time and to be thinking of. And I was like that's what
That's
being
right.
a professional is like you need to have your mind
You're
on so many things at once, your eye on so many things at once, anticipating things is such a massive part of being a professional and like running a professional set,
Yeah.
and just sort of like
Yeah. Huge.
either preparing for them in advance or just, in the moment being able to, like you said, course correct, and
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
Yeah. It's always fun to kind of peel back like how you actually did something. Like, how did
Yeah.
I actually make that photo? And they had to peel all the layers back, and you realize that there's 45 different things that you did. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can put that
It's
into a
I
book somewhere.
Somebody asked me something about one of the like portrait shoots I did. And I was like, I have no idea. I don't remember a thing. I blacked out actually.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Oh, I think that's flow state." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds right." But
Yeah.
you just like I find photography extremely meditative,
Sure.
because you're really zoned in and locked in, and you're very much like in the moment. And especially when I'm shooting like more candid stuff or more documentary style stuff, like I'm not trying to
Yeah.
control anything. I'm just there to observe, and you need to be
It's huge.
aware of like a lot of things. So
Yes.
I find it extremely meditative, and so to a degree it's like I know there's a lot going into the decisions I'm making or like the way that I am
Mhm.
making this photograph, but it's also all just kind of like it all kind of just happens, and I don't analyze it in the moment. It just sort of, and that's an experience thing. Like the more people do it, the more
Yeah.
they'll develop that muscle.
Yeah, you can't rush life. You have to let life unfold, especially when you're doing like a documentary behind the scenes. Like you gotta wait. You gotta see what's gonna happen, and you can't tell
Yeah.
someone to do something. Otherwise, that's not really behind the scene thing. It's like you just have to let life unfold and just okay, I'm here,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. But it is a skill set though, absolutely, 100%. Because it's like not everyone can do that stuff, right? And be patient. I think patience plays a large
Mhm.
key in that, and just being ready
Yeah.
for like the moment. It's very cool. I
Yeah.
love that stuff.
I'm a big be ready for anything person.
Be
So
ready for anything. I love
yeah.
that. Well, we're up against the hour, Alana, so I just want to say thanks again for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You crushed it.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Any final words, advice for the people out there?
No.
Good luck.
Just do it. Start where you are. The full quote of this is start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And I think that's great advice.
That is good advice in all aspects of life. I love that stuff. Well, thanks a lot. I'd love to have you back on at some other point.
Absolutely.
And everyone watching, listening, go check out Alana. Links are in the description, and we shall see you next time.
Thank you.
Peace.